Amazing. So thank you. For those of you that are obviously just tuning in now, because I just hit record, I just had a little quick disclaimer with Carl, and I said, I prefer just to be authentic and genuine. It's the kind of media that I like to consume. And I feel like if it's too scripted at the beginning, it's not really who I am or what I want the message to be. So I asked Carl, I said, hey, are you cool if we just let it rip? And he said, yeah, I'm an open book. So welcome to the show. Carl, it's such an absolute honor to have you. And before I stop talking and allow you to have the mic, I just want you to understand how I feel about time. I've always believed that time is the most valuable resource that we have. So I just want to say thank you so much for sharing yours with me and with my audience. So thank you so much for making this space.
Well, I appreciate it, and my ego is always happy to blabber about whatever it is that I think I know. So
Yeah, amazing,
I
amazing.
appreciate it.
Yeah, and I mean that. It's absolutely my pleasure. I've been a really big fan of yours, just to give you some context and the listeners as well. Um, I've been a big fan of yours for years. I dove headfirst into CrossFit years and years ago. I don't want to say I was one of the early adopters, but I definitely was involved in the community at an early stage. And your name was one that was just synonymous with it. So I've always just appreciated how you've shown up in every avenue that you've been in. I've always found you to be a really authentic person that's always spoken to me. And the cool thing is, well, that we also share a few connections, obviously with Mark and Jeff over at Strike Movement. And I'm just a big believer, if my friends have friends, I'm likely going to connect with them as well. So just to say a quick, I guess, blowing smoke or supporting you and pumping your tires a bit, I've always just really appreciated the way you look at things and how you show up. So from me to you, man to man, thank you for what you do and what you're continuing to do.
That's amazing. Yeah, CrossFit seems to be the gift that keeps on giving, and it's cool to know how we're connected. I mean, I don't know. I was just a kid trying to figure it out, and I happened to stumble upon CrossFit and be in the right place at the right time, apparently saying the things that people wanted to hear. And yeah, I went all in on it. And it's something that until this day, I hear about it every single day of the week. I get some kind of message or some kind of connection. I see somebody on the street, somebody just happens to recognize me because they've seen some old YouTube videos of me. And most of the times they only recognize me if I'm wearing like a hat, and it's like a backwards hat. Uh, it's it's insane. It's absolutely insane. So it's cool to see that um, what I did back then, and the what I call the career lottery that I won continues to pay off in some form. And one of the best forms it's paying off in is in connections like this. I didn't know about you, but you got me when you sent me that video message. I was like, oh, this dude is putting his face out. I like this. This feels like a real person on the other side, rather than some AI
Yeah.
personal assistant reaching out to you saying, hey, let's get you on our show. And by the way, we're going to, get you 200,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel. It's
Right. Right.
very different.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And yeah, I actually had a moment similar to the motivation that I had to send a video to you. I had a moment where I was just leaving working with a client, and I was due to have a meeting in the car on the phone with another client, and we've been challenged getting together with our schedules. And I had a choice in that moment. I could leave it up to them, which was the plan for them to call me, or as time ticked by and we were eating into that time, I had a choice of either pull the car over, look up the number and call them myself, or just be more passive. And my future self always tells me to do the thing that will actually get you the result, or at least give that person an impression of how serious you are about either helping or achieving whatever it may be. And I knew it was comfortable to stay driving and let them call me whenever they wanted to call me, or just pull over and take control. And I feel like just sending a direct message to someone via text, I'm assuming, again, I don't know, I'm assuming you get lots of those throughout a day. And I just think, yeah, if I can take 10 seconds or a minute and send a personal video message just has the opportunity to land a bit different.
Yeah. Yeah, I do get a fair amount of messages, and I mean, I was just looking at my phone earlier, and I'm one of those people that has a lot of red on it,
Right.
a lot of
Yeah.
unread messages.
Yeah.
And yeah, it can get overwhelming. But there are certain channels and certain ways where when people communicate with you there, that it's very easy to connect.
Hmm.
And a lot of times it's on Instagram. I want to say that Instagram has actually done a pretty decent job at weeding out spam messages. And then, of course, you can organize into your primary in general.
Yeah.
That allows you to just connect in a different way. And the fact that you have a voice note or a video note or a picture or something, I don't know, Instagram works, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great tool when used correctly. Um, if we can just for a minute, I want to just unpack the CrossFit experience that you had. I don't want to put too long of a tail on the kite because I really want to spend this time with you talking about what you're doing now and how you're showing up now for your community and how that community has changed. I would say my interpretation is it's less physical, more internal, more emotional. But you mentioned something to me that I actually was motivated to discuss with you more so when you work with your current clients and the community you work with. But I would love to for you to help me and the listeners understand if this resonates with you in regards to how your exposure and I'll call it success in CrossFit came to be. And I'm reminded of the quote, and I don't know who said it, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, but it is, we don't rise to the occasion, we fall to our training. And one, does that resonate with you? And two, the way you explained how CrossFit, quote unquote, happened for you, it sounds to me like that was pretty accurate. You had done things in your life, obviously with a gymnastics based background, and the timing, like you said, was just kind of right. So do you feel like you rose to an occasion, or did you feel like you had been putting in all of those reps, if I can, to set you up to strike at that opportunity?
Yeah, the obvious answer is both. I rose to the occasion, meaning I stepped out of my comfort zone and I pushed myself to levels that I didn't know I could push. And at the same time, I had a lot of training, specifically in gymnastics. And the thing that gave me the edge was that I was passionate about action sports. So at an early stage in my adulthood, I had seen the application of a traditional sport such as gymnastics applied to action sports, and realizing that there wasn't this one size fits all approach to training and performance, that it had to be a one fits one. And moreover, what I noticed was that when one could express themselves in their own unique way, that could produce new standards, new levels of performance, and exploring the uniqueness of somebody's style
Mhm.
could actually help maximize their performance in all other places. At the same time, there was this notion of, work on your weakness type thing, which is amazing. Yeah, I believe in that. But in order to work on your weakness, you need to lean into your strength. And this means lean into your strength, which is that which allows you to do things, that which you're excited about, that which you're good at, until you get to a point where you notice the edges of your performance.
Mm.
When you notice the edges of your performance, that's when you start to realize that there are certain things in your arsenal that need a little attention, and those being the weaknesses. And now you utilize your strengths to develop those weaknesses. It becomes second nature. So it doesn't feel like a drag. It always feels like something that is moving you forward. And that was kind of what happened to me at that point. I just leaned into my strengths. I realized that I had certain weaknesses that weren't allowing me to move forward, and I leaned into those, and those I started to polish. And yeah, the rest is history. I got to
Ooh.
ride this massive wave.
Yeah, amazing. As you're speaking to me about that and using and articulating it as you just did, if we were flipping the paradigms and talking about what you're doing now, and I'll use the term coach for lack of a better term, coaching individuals, coaching groups, coaching communities. Is it not the exact same thing in that you, like you just said, I'm going to help my clients or help the community see their strengths, and then through pushing them through those boundaries, like, so is it the same sort of process that you currently incorporate with your clients, or is it different? And if it is, how so?
Yeah, it's the exact same thing. When it was CrossFit, it was gymnastics applied to fitness performance.
Mhm.
Now it's mental gymnastics applied to performance in general, right? It's the same thing. The difference right now, and this is what I'm having to wrestle with, is that mental performance, emotional fitness, as I like to talk about it, is not cool necessarily.
Mhm.
It's a problem. It's not cool. It's a problem. Ooh, we have a mental health epidemic, right? It's a problem. It just feels heavy. But the moment we make emotional fitness cool, then we'll have this, big wave that will come out of it. And who knows, maybe that comes from a combination of things, or maybe it's something that we have to create ourselves. But the application of knowledge is exactly the same. And I'll give you an example. I think this was in probably 2009, 2010 at the latest. I was heading to teach a little workshop, and I was going to do this little talk on a whiteboard because they had asked me to do it. And I was like, what am I going to talk about at the whiteboard? I just want to kind of get to the movement stuff. But they asked me to do this thing because it was part of this conference. So I wrote on just a little napkin. I just wrote, okay, I need a framework here. What am I going to talk about? Position. I'm going to talk about movement, and I'm going to talk about purpose. Position was the body shapes. Movement was the body shapes that you would move through, and purpose was the reason, the context. So that's what I wrote. I just wrote position, movement, purpose. And I talked about that. And then eventually that ended up becoming the framework that I use for every single seminar after that. And it became the foundation of the book that I wrote. And now that same framework of position, movement, purpose continues to be alive, where position is no longer a body shape. Position is an idea. I have an idea of how things should be. The movement is how you behave, your actions. It's how that idea makes you behave. And the purpose is the reason for doing what you do, for behaving that way, for arriving at the idea. So it all kind of feeds into each other. And the beauty of this is that this framework is what allows me, when I'm talking or sharing or thinking about coaching and performance, to develop a language that is universal, but individually applicable.
I love it.
And that being the key. So yeah, it's exactly the same thing. It's just a different dialect of the language of movement.
Man, I love that. Thank you for sharing. It reminds me of one of my first coaches. He shared with me this, I don't know how you would, basically he broke it down. It's BEAR, BEAR, beliefs, emotions, actions, results. So it all, whatever you believe, the next step is the emotions that you feel. The emotions lead to your actions, and your actions lead to results. It's just this like never ending loop of reality. And I love the way you broke that down as well. And it's so serendipitous that you went into this seminar having no intention of writing on a whiteboard, and what you created was now this framework that is serving you to show up for your community, which is, again, just such a beautiful thing. I take that, my interpretation of that is it was supposed to happen that way because it did happen that way, and there's no other way it could have happened. Right?
Yeah, and that's a good, if we tie it back to the beginning, it's a good way of looking at one rising to an occasion. And it's saying, okay, what is this context, this environment, this situation influencing me to do? It's influencing me to just think about how can I structure that which I have in a way that can potentially be of value to those who are listening, and then being forced to say something. And that constraint, that pressure that stress producing, in this case, a diamond, which is this framework that for me works great. And for me is very valuable.
How often do you find yourself, whether it be professionally, personally, being concerned with or tied up in the outcome? And that's
every day.
okay. Okay. So, and this is a really selfish question. What is your process, coach to coach, man to
Yeah.
man, human to human, when you feel as though you're unable to divorce yourself, is language I like to use? How do you divorce yourself from the outcome and trust the process? And before you go, I look at it no different than if you were coaching me in a gymnastics movement. You would probably say, Brad, I need you to not be worried about that last position. Let's just look at what we need to do, what's in your control to give us the best chance of getting there. So using any analogies you want or something practically, how do you do that? And how often is that true for you, having to separate yourself from the outcome?
Yeah, I wasn't joking. Every day you cry, you cry when nobody's looking.
Right, right, right.
You bitch and moan, and internally just go crazy. But no, in all seriousness, well, first and foremost, let me just preface this with the following. It depends on what time of your stage of development or your life that you're in. Right now, I'm in a building stage, and anytime you're building, it just sucks. It just sucks. It's uncomfortable. It's stressful. You don't know if it's going to work. You're constantly met with a lot of resistance. When you think you have an idea and you feel like I'm on fire, and then you put it out and then you're like, oh, that didn't land. What's going on? You just start to go nuts. You seek out mentorship, you get feedback. It's a mess. So it's all this crazy balancing act that it can be extremely frustrating. And with that being said, something that happens to me is that when I wake up in the morning, I'm maybe a 7 in terms of motivation, or an 8 at this moment, which I think is pretty good. But I like to be close to a 10. I want to trend towards a 10. So the first thing I do is I kind of put myself in a position where I remember why I started and why I'm doing this. And that gets me excited. Right. So I go and then I push through the day. And by maybe 7:30 or 8 p.m. now I'm at a 3 of motivation. I'm exhausted. I'm dead. I'm quitting. I'm done with this. And then nighttime routine, whatever that may be, dinner, chill, sleep, wake up, do it again. Okay. So every day I'm at the edge of quitting. Now, why don't I quit? Well, because I continue to remind myself, like I said in the morning, of why I started. And that allows me to know how to finish. So remember why you started and you'll know how to finish. Knowing that this too shall pass, which is so cliche that you could potentially just like jump off this podcast right now, gives you a constraint that says, this too will end. This moment will pass. This opportunity will go. And what do you want to do with what you have at this moment? What are you going to do with what you have at this moment? And that choice, that opportunity of choice, is the thing that allows you to detach from the outcome itself and adhere to a process. And it's an interesting place to be. Now, that may not help people at this moment, and maybe this little framework can. And it's this idea of having the focus of process over progress, progress over progression, and progression over outcome. Okay, so let's just decouple that. I haven't said this in a while, so I had to actually think about it. But we always say adhere to the process. What does this mean? This means do what's in front of you right now. Like, focus on this wholeheartedly. Trust that which you have planned and ideated on and now trying to deploy, that is the mechanism, and you just have to show up. That's the thing that we're trying to say. And this is kind of like the Eckhart Tolle power of now, right? process oriented. Well, the truth is that most of us can not be in focus more than 5 minutes. Some people only 35 seconds. A lot of us are picking up our phone constantly, or getting notifications, or something's happening, or we get distracted, or we're tired. Something's happening that takes us out of the process. Okay, so if you get launched out of the process, which is being in the moment and doing the thing that you're supposed to do, then you can start to think about progress. And just, this is noticing the incremental growth over time. What does this do? Well, this takes you into this like past regression. Okay, you start to look back. But the beauty of regression is that a regression is a progression. And this is kind of like the idea of scaling back. What's the bare minimum? How can you simplify things a little bit more, just so it's bearable for you to show up? The moment you do that, you become process oriented again. Now, if you're unable to go back and like do the regression thing and scale back and focus on what's in your control, become simple, then you can start to become progression oriented. Sorry. Progression oriented is going back to kind of your notebook and being like, oh, what did I write? I wrote I was going to do this, 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 and this. 5 sets of 5, or I'm going to now post this thing. I'm going to write this article. I'm going to show up for this podcast. Okay. Progression. I'm just going to follow the progression. When you see the progression, when you just see the roadmap laid out, you know what to do. And I want you to notice that in no point in time through process, progress, and progression have we even talked about the outcome.
Right.
So we're already separate from it. But if everything falls apart and you can no longer adhere to a progression, maybe because the progression isn't working or you're just suffering too much, that's when you can go to the outcome. And the outcome is not now thinking about how much money you're going to make, how many views you want to get, what you're trying to build, what you're trying to accomplish, the podiums that you're trying to achieve. What it really is a remembering of the reason that you started what you're doing in this moment in the first place, and that giving you some emotional clarity as to how you should move forward. And that puts you back on the progression, back into progress, back into process.
I hear you talk about this. I think not this specifically, but you talk about this cycle. What do you, it starts with an H. You use it on your podcast quite often. The what is it?
Hermeneutic circle. Yeah, that's in writing.
Yeah. So I think everything is so interconnected in life, and I really appreciate how you just articulated all of that. And for me, my the way I just downloaded what you just said is a piece of it is like, just make it accessible for yourself to allow yourself to keep moving forward. And I love how you mentioned more than once is the why piece. And I'm super turned on by that. I love what Simon Sinek does and the work that he does, like that whole definition of the why and how that can really fuel people forward. So help me understand, and the listeners as well, what is your why? Because I'm assuming it's a lot different than it was 10 years ago because of how you're showing up now for your community. So have you written it down? Do you articulate it often? What is Carl Paoli's why now?
Yeah, I see you have some pictures there or some drawings. I assume you're a father.
Yeah, father of a 4-year-old girl and a 3-year-old boy.
That's my reason. I'm a father and a grandpa now, and that's all I care about. It's just how do I become, this is so cliche, it hurts again. It's like, how do I become the best model and version of myself? And how do I lay out a foundation for this kid to succeed at the highest level in a way that allows him to be as free as he possibly can be, and to be fully present in his development and not miss a beat. And I say this with such confidence right now, but when I'm in the moment and I'm tired and I'm exhausted and I'm like, can we just change a diaper without having to wrestle,
Yeah.
Can we just do the thing? Can we just adhere to the progression that we've laid out, right? But that's the reason. That's the only reason. And not the only, but it's one of the main reasons. And other than that, there are a lot of people out there who just they just want to feel good.
Mm.
They just want to feel good. And I know that when I show up fully, people feel a little bit better.
Mm.
Whether I'm just present, listening, maybe giving them some advice, whatever it may be, they just feel better. That's my reason. And the reason is because for me, although I've had this amazing life, internally, I've had a lot of turbulence. I've been very scared. I felt very alone. I felt misunderstood, um, confused, always wondering what the hell is this thing we're doing here on this planet? This is so strange. What
Mhm.
is this? Um, and if anybody is feeling this, I hope I can bring some comfort to them or some guidance that allows them to, just keep their feet on the ground and feel like what they're experiencing in this moment is exactly what they're supposed to be experiencing. And through this is where they're going to find um, triumph or fulfillment or some sort of sense of progression that in retrospect, when they look back, they can really have some sense of not only like ownership of it, but a sense of connection to what they've done, who they are, and who they are
Mm.
becoming. And not just from this like isolated me world, but us world.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah,
Mhm.
it's difficult at times when the kids are rolling around, no longer my reality with diapers, thankfully, but it's tough to stay in that headspace. But I think if you practice enough of touching base with your why, it makes it more accessible. And you can, whether it's through breath work or through, I don't know, just asking for a pause, if you're lucky enough to have a partner that can step in and allow for you to have that space, and just going, okay, like I've announced that this is my why. So I know I need to show up differently for them. But I also in those moments want for someone like you and myself and others like us. And I think speaking more typically to men here, but also women, is I'll tell this some of my clients, like, put your hand on your heart and have some empathy for yourself. Like, this is tough. Like, this is, you are trying to do a lot right now, and your why may be grandiose and really big, and part of this process may get messy. And I don't know, and feel free to jump in and interject, I don't know how many people that I'm exposed to on the daily practice empathy for themselves. And then if they're not doing that, how can they expect to show up for others in that way? And I just feel like that's one of the very first things we need to do if we want to look at emotional intelligence as something that is so important nowadays. And I believe it is. Um, if we can't do that for ourselves, how can we do that for other people? How does empathy show up for you, whether it be for yourself or for others?
Mm. Well, it shows up in many different ways, but if we were to just get a little technical here, let's start with this idea that actually, before I even say this, I recommend everybody listening, if they care about emotions to some degree and want to understand how emotions work, they should read Lisa Feldman Barrett's book, How Emotions Are Made. It's
Okay.
it's a great book, and Lisa Feldman Barrett in this book basically explains that emotions are that which we produce, we
Mhm.
create to prime or prepare the body to act in a certain way, but they're also a product of the brain signaling that something is about to happen. Because as much as the brain signals for our physiology to change in order to be ready for something or to be in a certain environment, in a ready state, so to speak, it's also predicting. So it's anticipating what is to come.
Mhm.
And through that anticipation, it brings up an emotion, and that emotion changes your physiology. Now, this is my take on it, and anybody who knows more about this can come and tell me that I've got it wrong. But this is my interpretation: is that with that emotion, as that emotion arises and your physiology changes, your mental constructs and concepts start to change. Your mindset starts to change, and that's a feeling. There's an emotion, which is the embodiment, And then you have the feeling, which is a mental concept that is almost like the projection of that emotion in your mental space. And when you understand that a feeling is a mental concept and the embodiment of that is the emotion, and the emotion is there to signal a level of preparedness for something that you predict is going to occur, this means that you are always living in the future, right? When you're living in the future, you're experiencing some sort of anxiety because you think something's coming, you don't know what is coming. There's always this disconnect, and the disconnect is a state of being anti-empathetic, basically, because empathy is the connection, is the ability to understand what somebody else or even you, self empathy, are experiencing. So that's like just to paint the picture. Now, noticing this, becoming aware of this. Oh, wait, I'm anticipating what's happening and I'm missing this. And it's because I'm experiencing something in my body that's forcing me to move in that direction. That moment, that's when you decouple. And there, of course, are tools that you can utilize to break out of this anti-empathy state, which can be you can tap yourself on the chest. You see a lot of people doing tapping, for example. You can splash cold water on your face. That also signals, hey, come back to this moment. You can do an artificial sigh, like Andrew Huberman suggests, which is a double inhale through the nose and then a big exhale through the mouth. That will reset you and bring you kind of back to this moment. But all of those tools that allow you to come back into this moment are things that you first need to become aware of when to utilize them. And thus you need to have some priming that leads to that. And this is now having a meditation practice, a breath work practice, a writing practice, a basic movement practice, a creativity practice. And that priming your nervous system, your brain, to anticipate things in a different way. Now, on the other side, the way that it manifests this notion of empathy is in three different ways. One, through cognitive empathy, which is what most men, right? Most of the people who are like male constructs, they have a male construct of the world. They are cognitively empathetic. And what does this mean? This means that you're able to understand what is occurring, but you don't have a physiological response to it. This is, I see you, but I don't feel you. Then you have the emotional empathy. This is the empathy that you experience when you're watching a movie and you're really into it and you become the character. And if the character is crying, you start to cry. This is, I see you and I feel you. Now, both cognitive and emotional empathy are useful. The cognitive one is nice because now I don't have to go for the roller coaster. The emotional one is nice when I want to be entertained or experience something deep. But when I'm in a crisis situation, it's not good. I tend to default to the emotional empathy, and that tends to get me in trouble. And it's the goal is to live somewhere in the middle. And the somewhere in the middle is the third expression of empathy, and that is compassionate empathy, which, by the way, I didn't come up with this. This is Daniel Goleman's idea of emotional intelligence and the different types of empathy that he explains in his book, Emotional Empathy, which Emotional Intelligence, which I think was published sometime in the mid-90s. Anyways, compassionate empathy is being able to say, I see you, I feel you, but I'm not reacting to you. My physiology is not altering me to the degree where I'm reactive. I'm becoming responsive. And there's a big difference of between being reactive versus responsive. reactive this is like the old motivational speaker Zig Ziglar used to say, if you take medicine and you react to it, it usually doesn't translate to something good. You're having something that is negative. But if you take medicine and you respond to it, now you're actually moving in the right direction. You're healing, so to speak. So what compassionate empathy allows you to do is, I see you, I feel you, but I'm not reacting, I'm responding to you. It becomes like medicine, good medicine.
Mm.
And that's a state of being that is fully present. It allows you to see past and future. You are process oriented, fully connected. And I think that's where the meaning of life is. And the more we can practice trending towards this state of compassionate empathy, the better. Now, with that being said, every single one of us will experience, when we live in a place of true compassion, we will experience either some dissonance, because some compassionate action requires you to do certain things that up front seem painful. This is kind of like setting boundaries. And in addition to that, compassion sometimes can produce fatigue. You start to get tired. You have compassion fatigue, which is you're holding space, you're holding space, you're holding space until you are depleted. And this is where having a balance is key. Having a good partner in your life is key. Having a place where you know that this is work, this is rest, and coupling those things together in a way that allows you to create enough tension to move you forward, but enough space to allow you to recover, to hold that tension is the never-ending, infinite practice.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it. You mentioned something that I really wanted to make sure we held space for today, and I believe this is what makes up interface, which is one of your offerings, correct? It's called interface. Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 You mentioned writing practice, like journaling practice, breath work practice. You mentioned movement. These are the aspects that make up interface. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, and by the way, I just kind of made those up.
Oh, I
But
thought
yeah,
they were. I thought they
they
were like.
are. They are. They
Okay.
are. They totally are. But I want to just say that any practice can be a tool for interfacing with yourself. So first
Right.
and foremost, the interface is a workshop that I used to teach, course experience type thing, that was designed to help people develop emotional fitness. And
Mm.
emotional fitness, being defined by me, is basically applied emotional intelligence, but I define it specifically as one's ability to move into a state of being that translates into purposeful action. In
Mm.
other words, the ability to move into a state of being is realizing that as much as we are influenced by our environment, that we can consciously choose to change that state of being. So when you notice, oh, damn, I'm reacting, to through the breath, through some kind of physical movement, some kind of expression, turning around, looking away for a second and back, that can change your state of being. And that state of being translating, meaning it applies to purposeful action. And what is purposeful action? Purposeful action is a clear intention. That is the why. Like you were saying earlier, it's remembering the why, right? So
Mm.
that is emotional fitness. And when you have the ability to do that, I simply believe that you perform better, you feel better, things are better.
Mm.
Now, with the interface, the goal is to help us become more aware and develop the skills that allow you to access this emotional fitness. And the practices that I have chosen have been meditation, breath work,
Gotcha.
writing, movement, and creativity.
Mm.
And when I say I made those up, is because I just picked those, but you can pick any you want that allow you to access that.
I love that. What of those do you find serves you the most through your day today, and what are you tapping into most consistently of those?
Yeah, I think it's the writing, but I do all of them So, for example, as of late, I've realized, oh, my meditation practice has been kind of dwindling, and I need to pick it back up because I'm starting to experience certain things. As I said earlier, I'm kind of like in a building phase right now. I'm like, okay, I'm going to build my business, and I'm doing the thing again. And I'm putting myself out there. Um, so I feel a lot of physical symptoms that come from that stress. Jaw, my tinnitus is a little bit, more activated. My neck hurts because I'm sitting here at this damn computer all day. So I know I need more meditation. My brain gets all crazy. So I'm craving that stillness. So 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it may be. Breath work, I do that all the time. I'm walking my dog. I'm doing some, oxygen advantage thing. I'm holding my breath and pinching my nose. Sometimes I'm sitting here. I'm like, oh yeah, I think I need to reset. Let me do the artificial sigh. Does that work? Yes. Okay, I feel a little better. Or if I realize I'm very revved up. So like right before jumping on this session, I was like, ooh, I'm already, it's only 9:30 in the morning and I'm already a little revved up. So I had to do the 3 minutes of breathing where I was simply extending my exhale to down regulate. So there's my breath work, there's my meditation. But every day I have a notebook and I just write in the notebook. Now, this notebook is kind of like the journal, right? It's like I just scribble things, and that's me just closing the mental tabs. And sometimes it's not even writing. Sometimes it's just scribbling. Sometimes it's just creating frameworks. It helps me, and that's what I call closing my mental tabs. I just close the mental tabs, just like on your computer. You just start with a clear and clean slate. But then where it really happens is I, boom, go on the computer and I actually start typing, writing. And the thing that feels so good about that is that I take an idea or a concept and I start to flesh it out into something that I feel gives me something to hold on to, clarity to anchor my thinking in. And a lot of times what ends up happening is that it becomes the theme of the day, it becomes the theme of the week, it becomes the theme of the month, even the theme of the year. And over time, as you accumulate these little nuggets of clarity, they become a philosophy. And philosophy is the love of knowledge or wisdom. And this is your wisdom. And now what's happened is that, oh, I have a connection with who I am, or at least who I think I am. And whether who I think I am is correct, if that's even a thing or not, I'm in relationship with it. So there's the writing. Then I have the movement. For example, I know that I need to do more strength training. I don't feel like doing the strength training, but sometimes, I'm excited and I'm like, I just get it done. It feels like, oh yeah, I feel powerful. But in order for me to get there, what I do is that which is completely resistance free first. So sometimes I like going for a run, because going for a run means I get to get out of the house. I get to get into nature, breathe some fresh air. And then I do the thing that's a little harder. And this is kind of goes back to this idea of use what you're strong at to develop where you're weak. And sometimes it's, oh, you know what? Standing on my hands, that comes easy. I like to do that. That's fun. I'll stand on my hands. And then once I'm standing on my hands, I'm a little warm. My whole body has changed. My state of being has changed. Now I go into my strength training. So there's my movement practice. And then there's the creativity. And creativity can be anything. It can be, let's record a podcast. Let's just ramble. Let's scribble on our notebook. Let's do some arts and crafts. Let's redesign or redecorate the house. And that being a practice that is also included in my daily life. So they're all there and they're all valuable. It's just a matter of finding the ways that people and individual can apply those and make them part of their lifestyle.
Right. I think one thing that I believe and what I hear from you sharing is the most impactful exercise, for lack of a better term, is the one that you can do the most consistently.
Yeah.
I think consistency in every aspect of our lives, relationships, business, personal, consistency is key. There were two questions that I was really wanting to ask you, and I ask these to most of my corporate clients, and it's one of the very first set of questions that I ask them, generally in a group setting. And I love for you to entertain me with, or humor me, I should say, with you answering these two questions. The one is, what are you world class at? And the second question is, what are you weak at?
Mm. Let's start with the weakness.
Okay.
I am scared of losing. I'm so scared of it. I don't want to lose. And when I'm talking about that, I don't want to lose in business. I don't want to lose in sport. I don't want to lose my friends, family. I get caught in that scarcity mindset sometimes, and I don't know where it comes from, but it's been my first memory in my life has always been fear of loss, and when I'm not producing uh, results that I'm connected with, or that I feel like, oh yeah, these really come from a place of this is who I am, that feel original. When they feel generic, I just feel like I'm losing, and I can get caught in the minutia of that.
Mhm.
So that's a big one. And a lot of times when I get caught in the minutia of that, of course, I start to project on others. I project on my clients. I project on my family. I project, it's just like that's bad. Good news is that I've been working with this for a long time, and my projections, although my wife and my daughter are catch me on this all the time. Um, Most people don't pick up on the projection, but I do. And immediately that comes with guilt. And guilt is a very wasteful uh, emotional state to be in. So that's my weakness.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Funny enough, what I'm world class at, and it's hard for me to even say this because I I struggle sometimes. I'm very self-critical, but I have realized that okay, you're pretty fucking good at this. You're able to paint mental pictures for people in a way that makes them believe in what they know is true deep down inside of them. Like I know how to access that. I know how to paint that picture, and
Mm,
people leave inspired, meaning full of life. They feel confident, and now they feel capable of executing on something that they know they need to do to achieve the thing that they want, um, in a way that just feels like, yeah, this is right. I am in full alignment. And
mm,
that is, although on this podcast, I've been rambling a lot, I haven't been very simple, clear, and compelling. I've been more colorful. Um, that is communication. I think the art of communication, which is something that I have always seen myself as terrible at, or as my weakness, it happens to be my strength, and the thing that is bringing me the most success. And here, important to define what success is, which is success is a point of succession,
mm.
a point that produces a continuation, where
So,
you never arrive at the end. You're
right.
always in an inflection point. And that being a state of mastery, and a mastery not being a destination, but rather a path that you're walking.
Yeah, man, that's beautiful. I believe that to be true with our physical being, with our, like you're talking about meditation, breath work, business. I had a meeting this morning with a client, and they're looking for certain results. So we go through and we audit different aspects of their business, and we're grading it out of 10, and they're really close to getting themselves a 10. And I say, just so we understand, just so we're all in this room, we're all on the same page. If we give this a 10, what else is there? There is no more room. So I'm okay with give it. If you want to put it up there, I'm okay with it. But just so we're clear, that means that we are at our capacity. There is nowhere for us to grow. And I could see a few eyebrows raise. And I love the idea of growth. I myself, I seek it all the time, and I almost do it maybe to a fault. Like I want to fail. I heard this morning. Someone said, most successful entrepreneurs have a graveyard full of failures. So it's like, don't be afraid. And I probably have like 10 or 12. So I need to be doing more. I need to fail more to succeed. Help me understand your relationship with failure. And before you actually do that, help me understand how you define a loss, because I'm assuming your power circle, your wife, your daughter, your family, your friends that you keep close, if you were to show them, they'd be like, dude, what are you talking about? So
Mhm.
are you saying, is it Carl saying it's a loss, or is it something external as well?
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is that it's not even something tangible. It's just a feeling,
Oh, okay.
right?
Right.
It's just, oh, I felt like I lost. But if I had to connect it to something tangible, so if we go back to the CrossFit thing,
Yeah.
um, one of my regrets was um, not burning a bridge, but basically just neglecting how powerful CrossFit was for me and my evolution, because I had got to such a stage of burnout in 2014, 2015, where everything just kind of, it just felt like it imploded, that I needed to detach myself. And when I detached myself from that which had gotten me to this point, or at least the environment that had gotten me to this point, what I did was I lost connection. That's a loss.
Mm.
And in losing that connection, what I did was I stopped being fully true to certain things in my life that I believe in, which is um, yeah, appreciate where you came from so that you can continue to appreciate where you're going. And there was a lack of appreciation for that. And one of the reasons was, yes, I was burned out, but because it was so um consistent that it felt like it was always going to be there.
Mm.
Furthermore, it started to make me believe that anything that I touched would turn to gold. And
Right.
then realizing the moment I detached myself from that thing, I was like, wait a second, I don't have the Midas touch. I'm human.
Right.
So that's an example of a convoluted experience that uh, wherever you position yourself within the story and your mindset, I see as a loss, and the loss is sure, it can be revenue. Okay, I make less money at this moment, but my impact is actually greater than it used to be, and especially it's greater on myself because I'm way more aware, and I'm way more process oriented. I have so many more details. I have so much more to offer. But in terms of impact to others, maybe the number is less, but the quality is greater at this moment. Now I'm looking, oh, how do I scale this?
Mhm.
That's a different problem, but you could see it as a loss from those different vantage points. Does that
Have
answer
you?
your question?
No, no, absolutely, and I appreciate you sharing that and being vulnerable. Um, have you processed that, or is this still something that is like very much real for you in your conscious or subconscious? Have you forgiven yourself for that journey?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm forgiven, but
Okay, good,
definitely,
good.
uh,
Uh,
definitely forgiven.
did you want to add to that? Sorry.
Well, I don't know if I want to add to that, but yeah, yeah, I have processed that. But what is interesting at this moment is, when you start to do something that works and you realize that your scope can be even narrowed even a little bit more just to become a little bit more precise.
Mhm.
I'm currently wrestling with how much I want to narrow. And
Mm.
something that it is coming up for me is because I work with athletes, coaches, and creators. What's coming up for me is that there are a lot of coaches now that are in my space. And I'm almost like, ooh, should I just close it a little bit more and just focus on dial in on the coaches? And that's something that I'm wrestling with. So I am still processing
Right.
some of my relationship with the past, and it's a forward facing processing, but it still makes me reminisce on certain things and reminds me of what position I was putting myself in the past, and thus sometimes feeling, ooh, I did the thing, I was, ooh, I you see what I mean? You get a little,
Absolutely.
You get a
Yeah,
little caught there.
for me, the way I look at it is it's like you're going objective. It's like Carl's watching Carl. You're like, oh, there you go again, doing that thing that you know doesn't serve you. And I
Right.
think so many of us can benefit from that idea of going like subjective to objective. Oh, there goes Brad doing what he said he no longer wanted to do, but because of habit and behaviors and old stories, etc. I think that for me comes back to the empathy piece I like to practice, at least for myself, is understanding this is my journey. I am likely going to go back on old stories at times, but it's about, and this is what I get a lot from your podcast, and this is what I take from it personally, is like this raising this level of awareness, self-awareness, mindfulness. And I think it's just such a beautiful gift if we can give that to ourselves, because that's where we really see that growth, is through the seeing and then the being. Oh, look at how I'm being right now. I really want to detach from like the doing, and more of the being is important for me. But I actually was scrolling through my phone just before I picked up our kids from their sports camp, before you and I hopped on, and there was a quote um, that I thought I really wanted to share with you to see your take on it, and also to see if it resonates, to give my listeners an idea of how you show up for those demographics, for your community, the clients that you serve. So the quote is from Lennox Lewis, heavyweight boxer. And he said, when fighters have cheerleaders for trainers instead of truth tellers and problem solvers, there will be a reckoning. Seek truth before the truth seeks you. So when you're interacting with your clients, how do you show up? Are you helping them see the truth? Or, and for me, what that means is like pushing them to that edge that we spoke about? Or are you finding yourself playing in an area that perhaps is a bit more comfortable?
No, it's
I kind of know the answer, but I wanted you to, pardon the pun, but punch your way through.
I'm a great cheerleader.
Okay.
I'm a
I
great
figured that.
cheerleader.
I figured that.
Yeah, I'm world class at it. Okay, so maybe I have to change my mind. I'm world class at cheerleading for sure.
Okay.
But no, it's all truth based, and it depends on who I'm working with and what stage of development they're in. And this
Okay.
is kind of like the idea of meeting people where they're at
Love it. Like
and
pace,
realizing,
pace
okay,
and
right, depending on where they're at, they are either going to be in, let's say specifically, if you're talking business or if you're talking physical fitness or whatever performance, you need to see what stage of development they're in. They're either in a child stage, a teenage stage, or an adult stage, right? So the child is the one that needs a lot of hand holding. You're going to do it with them. And sometimes you need to cheer them on. Come on, we're going to go do the thing. Come here. It's so great. Right. So you're going to talk to them like that. And it's like, oh yeah. You know, a lot of people that I work with, they need to start sharing online a little bit more. But they don't dare to. So it's kind of like, come on, we're going to do this. And now you're going to speak to the camera. It's going to be great. And they're like, terrified, but they need the cheerleading.
Yeah.
Then you have the teenagers. The teenagers are the ones that they already do all the things that you're telling them. They know how to do them. So they just want to do it on their own. Cool. Go do your thing. Yeah. And you can't tell them a truth. They're not going to listen to you. You can't cheer them on. They're just going to do. You just have to hold space for them and just kind of say, hey, I'm here. I love you. Here, I love you. Here, I love you. Yeah. How you doing? Just checking in. Oh, cool. You want me to close the door? I'll close the door. Right. And you can have clients like that.
Yeah.
And then you have the adults. The adults are the ones who have experienced enough pain or have experienced enough resistance that now they're seeking a collaborative relationship. And those are the ones that now want to hear the truth. They're ready to hear the truth. So the way that the truth is presented there is very different. And that is truth first, cheerleading second. Whereas the child development is cheerleading first, truth second. Right. And then the middle is just, I just hold space. And once in a while you get a little thing. Oh, you need cheerleading? Go. Yeah, you're doing great. Keep going. Or you see this, oh, this happened. How did it feel? Oh, it felt like shit. Cool. I'll close the door. You ready? You process.
Right.
Who
was the guest you just had on? Ryan or Rico? Is that
yeah. A wild man. A wild man.
So I want you to, and for my listeners who don't know who he is, I want you to embody him for 90 seconds, and I want you to answer the exact same question, but as Ryan.
Uh, you basically say, you fuck face, don't you don't you fucking realize what you have to do? Yeah, then get the fuck out of here. What are you asking me for?
Yeah. So the reason I asked that is because when I listened to that podcast, which is great, by the way, um, I feel like someone like that is just like, he's done what you were talking about. He just niched down to like, this is how I'm showing up. Like, I don't care if you're crawling or if you're an adult. This is how I'm showing up for you. You either lump it or leave it.
Mhm,
What I hear from you, and I love the uniqueness of that, is you take a very specific approach to each situation and each person that you're dealing with, because they may need you to show up differently for them.
mhm,
And again, I only know, I've been exposed to Ryan through your podcast, so I don't have a ton of knowledge of what he offers and how he offers it. But I just thought the way that you articulated your answer to that question, and having that podcast that you just released being so fresh in my mind, of like,
mhm.
I feel like he would have answered that completely different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he would say it's none of my business.
Right.
Yeah, get out of here. But that's just his style, and he is kind of like a comedian, exploring the edges of
Yeah.
what is acceptable, and trying to do it in a way that gets people to think different.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wonder, I'm like, is this guy a genius or a sociopath? I don't know, but it's very interesting what he does and the way that he does it, and he definitely challenges one's thinking.
Yeah.
Not my style. Although my alter ego wants to be like that. I'm just a more sensitive dude.
I think we can do that though. I think that's one of the beautiful things, is we can take a bit from everyone. I like to think I have a lot of mentors in my life, a lot of them maybe even dead, dead and alive, that I can look at and see like, okay, how did he or she carry themselves? How did they interact? What were their paradigms they looked through? And create my own style, if you will, from all of that. So I think it's healthy to expose ourselves to people where you ask yourself, is this person crazy, or are they actually just so brilliant that they seem crazy to me? And that's one thing that I admittedly am challenged with, is this idea that why just because I think it, is it right? And
Hmm.
it isn't. It's just because I think it. And I find that to be really, really challenging for me as a coach, when I step into a room with an individual or a group of individuals, and they're all looking at me, and I'm going, I hope this sounds right because I think it's right, but maybe it's not right. I don't know. Is it right? And just all these questions I keep asking myself. But in the moment, I allow for it just to download and come through me. And
Hmm.
something you mentioned earlier was the word alignment. And I can't tell you how in alignment I feel when I do that. And that's when I know I'm doing the right thing. Like, I walk out of my meetings, the ones that I'm doing in person, and I have goosebumps. I'm just like so fulfilled.
Hmm.
And I know I'm doing the right thing. So I guess one of the last questions I'll ask you, because I want to respect your time, is, are you challenged by that thought about who is Carl Paoli to say, I think you should do it this way? Or have you exercised that? You're past that now. You just trust this process and this journey that you're on, that you're going to speak it because it is your truth.
Yeah, I've always said, who am I to tell you what to do?
Right.
That's kind of the essence of it. But something that I have practiced, and what I've learned over the years of teaching, especially teaching seminars, is that at first I used to show up as the authority, and the authority was there to tell you what the truth is, and I'm going
Right.
to show you the way, and I'm going to lead you, and
Right.
just watch me go. I'm the captain.
Right.
And then I realized that although it worked and it was a great way of getting people to receive some information, process it, and potentially deploy it in meaningful ways, it wasn't maxing out our effort. So the next approach was, okay, I'm going to show up as if I know nothing, and I'm going to let them tell me. And the way that I'm going to let them tell me is by asking them questions that are contextual to their situation. So in the CrossFit space, it was a lot about like, yeah, what are you dealing with? Are you an athlete? Are you a coach? Are you both? What are you excited about? What are you not excited about? What do you see happen here? Where do you meet resistance? Where do you feel super fluid? And allowing that to inform that which I shared.
Mm.
Over tens of thousands of repetitions of doing this, eventually what happens is that a pattern emerges, and the pattern becomes a framework. And that framework now allows you to go back to the position of the authority that shows up. But now, instead of showing up with the intention of just like, I'm going to share this information, you show up in a way where you're acting as a mirror, where you already know what the questions are that they're going to ask you. Thus, you're informing them. And the more they think, they're like, wait a second, how are you reading my mind, so to speak? In other words, all I'm doing is just using our collective knowledge that contextually appears in a certain number of ways, and just reflecting it back. And then through that, and this is now like stage 4, is the transcendence, is when you go beyond this, is that now you use this framework that is created between you and your audience and the people that you're working with, where you present the framework, you allow everybody to become aware of that, and then to play with that framework as a mirror, where now you're creating again. So the transcendence is returning back to being the authority, but now it's a collective authority. And the co-creation of the solutions, I think, is the most powerful relationship that a coach, student, coach, mentee, whatever you want to call it, can have. It's the ability to co-create solutions to the problems that they're trying to solve.
I love that, man. I actually just picture you in a shirt and tie kicking in a boardroom door, and you're not dictating, it's all curiosity. But you know your intentions of being there, you know what you want the outcome to be, and you're seeking feedback from those people. But that's one thing I think you mentioned in one of your latest podcasts as well, is like working on being just a better question asker. And I think that is one of the most underutilized skills of a great coach, is knowing the questions to ask, like you said, to allow them to become a mirror. Like, hey, I'm just asking the questions, you're the one that came up with the answer, I would just want to facilitate you thinking about it perhaps in a different way. So I think that's something as coaches that I know myself, hands up, that I consistently want to get better at. No questions that are closed, all open-ended questions that allow for us to truly explore, well, I know that I'm here to help, but like, what do you want out of this? Like, what is your ultimate vision for this? And then I think that becomes a much, if I can tie the loop back to the why, it becomes a lot easier for them to then move on it, because they've discovered it themselves. It's their own story that they've created with
Yeah,
our guidance. It's like
exactly.
being the Yoda to the Skywalker, as opposed to jumping in there and being the Skywalker.
Yeah, and even though you may be, Yoda, you still know nothing. And that's very powerful. And that's one of the things that I think, you know, back in the day allowed me to perform at a higher level, was I was so naive that I would just say what I thought was true, without knowing what I was really saying. I was just kind of making it up. I was like, oh yeah, it's just flowing through me. This must be the thing. Um, that ignorance, or being naive, gives you a level of freedom to express yourself boldly, that now, in some areas, of course, I'm naive and ignorant, but where I supposedly have expertise, I just put myself, like you said, in a state of being curious and being like, okay, if I knew nothing, how would I be? And that allowing me to enter basically any room or have a conversation with anybody, and take on this like fictional coach persona, and be like, yeah, you're older than I am, you have more experience than I have, you have had more success, like, who am I to tell you? But yet here I am.
Right.
And that is a very powerful thing to experience, and it's very cool, and it's kind of like, whoa, this is cool. So coaching is not necessarily a position of authority, it's just a position of facilitating the ability that one has to move through obstacles in order to come out on the other side. And this is Ron Heifetz's definition of leadership: come out triumphant.
Mm, love it. You definitely come across as someone who's really well read. I am constantly seeking, again, like education and growth, and I love quotes. As we wrap up, is there a quote that serves you, that you always come back to, that you end up tapping into, that you would like to share, or a piece of education, something you've read that you want to leave as like a lasting message with the listeners and myself?
Mm. Yeah, I usually don't. I get inspired by other people's writing or how
Mhm.
they speak, but I always default to my own. I'm like, I want to be my own,
I love it. I
best
love it.
best fan. Mine is always that true human performance is measured by feel. When it feels right in your head and your heart and your gut, then you will be trending in the right direction.
Mm,
It's as simple as that. So, what does this mean? This means that when it feels right in your head, meaning that logically the steps are laid out, you're like, okay, this rationally makes sense. Then you're good. If that aligns with what you are passionate about, what you truly love and you like, and you know, oh yeah, I'm connected to this idea. Yeah, I truly believe in this idea. Like this feels like in my heart, right? Then you're good. And then finally, the gut. And the gut is the nervous system, it's the body. A lot of times, things may be logically right. You may even think you love them. And this is key, but your body is rejecting them. Damn, why am I feeling so depleted?
mm.
Why are my shoulders, my back hurting? What's going on with my knees? Like, why are my eyes so tired? What's happening here? So there's something there that is not in alignment. When you can align the mind with the heart, with the body, the gut, now you're truly performing by feel. And when you do that consistently over time, you start leaving a trail, and that trail being a body of work that it gives you enough evidence, enough results that you realize that that is the wake of your highest level of performance. And when you have that weight behind you, you become aware that you in this moment are performing at your highest level. And when you have that, that's the constant reminder. It's like, oh yeah, come back to this moment. Notice how you're doing things, feel how you're doing things, and continue to find alignment between those three aspects of who you are. And that will lead you to where you first need to go, and then eventually where you uh, desire to go.
Love it. Mic drop. That was awesome. I was not expecting you to quote yourself, but I'm really proud of you for doing it. And I love the fact that
Come
you
on.
said, yeah, man, you said, like, I think it's something we don't practice enough, like be our biggest fans. So yeah, I want to celebrate that and say thank you for that. I want to say thank you for your time as well. Like I said at the start of the show, it is the most valuable resource I believe that we have. So I want to say thank you for giving me and the listeners 71 minutes of yours. I also want to thank you for being on time. That's something that a lot of people, I'm generalizing here, struggle with nowadays. And you being attentive and showing up just says so much about who you are. And I want to say thank you so much for that as well.
Yeah, I think it's I maybe have some Swiss genes in me, so that punctuality is key. I was like, I'm 3 minutes early.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. I want to give you an opportunity. I want to lay out the red carpet for you. Like I said, I've always been a fan of what you do and how you do it, and I'm so excited to see you in this space now and helping individuals and tapping into the internal as well as the external. So if people are interested or encouraged, inspired to reach out, how best they do it?
Yeah, you can find me on any social media platform, Carl Paoli, freestyleconnection.com. And I'm sure if you just Google me, you'll find my email, Carl at freestyleconnection.com. And yeah, email me. I would love to hear from you, or message me, drop me a voice note on Instagram. I'm checking.
Yes, yeah, he is 100%, either a voice note or a video. Carl's
But
gonna hit.
let's remember, you reached out to me 1 year ago, and I didn't respond, so I somehow missed that one.
No, but that's all good. And that's like going back to the story I was sharing earlier about me and my car. It's like, okay, if I really want something to happen, then I've got to participate in this. And not to project, Carl's a busy guy. He's got a family. He's got like there's things going on in his life. So I'm not just going to give up, because that's what most people would do. And I don't care to be like most people. So I'm going to do what most people won't, which is say, hey, man, all good. I don't take any offense to it. I'm going to hit you up and see if you want to do it. And you were so kind again. And I also want to take a moment to thank you guys, the listeners. It means so much to me that you decided to spend this time with Carl and myself. And if you're inspired again by anything that Carl shared, I strongly encourage, at the very least, go check out his podcast, check out all of his content. And I'm sure that what you are on the path of doing, Carl, is nothing short of amazing. So if I can do anything to help you, to push you, to shine a light on you, I'm always here to do that. And I mean that sincerely. So thank you guys for tuning in. That's Carl. I'm Brad. And you know what to do until next time. Be good and do good. That's it, dude. We did it.
Thank you. That was amazing.
Yeah, you were fantastic. I really appreciate your time.
Dude, that was great. Yeah, thank you for having me and including me in this. It's always